After being fired from my job, I unexpectedly won $200 million in the lottery. My wife, who had promised to pick me up, stood me up. I walked 10 miles home in the pouring rain, only to find my wife had spent a fortune throwing a welcome party for her first love. When I was mentioned, everyone's faces showed disgust. My mother-in-law rolled her eyes and said, "That good-for-nothing lost his job and still wanted you to pick him up after work. Don't anyone dare open the door for him later." My 10-year-old daughter enthusiastically agreed. "Grandma's right. Mom should divorce that loser dad. I don't want to call a bum my father anymore. I like handsome and rich Uncle William, who can buy me limited edition Barbie dolls." My heart sank to the pit of my stomach as I turned my gaze to my beloved wife. But I heard her say with a gentle laugh, "One night as husband and wife, 100 days of kindness. I can't be that heartless. As long as he agrees to let William move in and rekindle our past romance, I'll let him be a husband in name only. What's the harm in him mooching off us for a few years?" At that moment, I fully realized that I was the real clown all along. But when I actually granted her wish and filed for divorce, they were filled with gut-wrenching regret upon seeing me driving a luxury car with my new wife and newborn baby daughter. "Mom, why don't you have Uncle William sit next to you? Grandma and I will do a heart sign behind you." As I opened the door, I saw my wife, daughter, and mother-in-law on the couch taking a family photo with a strange man. They were huddled together in front of the camera, their faces split with wide grins. Hearing the door, they finally noticed me. The smiles froze on everyone's faces. The atmosphere stiffened for a few seconds. In the next moment, the laughter resumed as if I were merely air, and they continued taking photos in a different pose. No one paid any attention to me. Only after they finished taking pictures did my mother-in-law give me a disdainful glance and speak. Well, Nolan, looks like you've still got legs to walk home with, huh? I thought you'd been fired and forgotten how to walk," forcing Melody to go pick you up. At this moment, I was soaked to the bone, my limbs stiff from the cold. After being laid off today, it started pouring. My wife had promised to pick me up from work, but she never showed up even until midnight. I walked 10 miles home in the rain. Before entering, I had already heard their contempt and mockery behind my back. I just never imagined that even after I got home, they would still ignore me and laugh it up with another man. A hint of bitterness welled up in my heart as I opened my mouth, about to speak. Suddenly, a piece of cake came flying at me. Splash! My face was suddenly covered in cream. I looked up. My daughter Vivian was hiding behind a man, looking at me with disdain. "Dad's being lazy, not working hard to earn money for me and Mom. What a loser. Can't even compare to Uncle William's pinky toe." My heart was suddenly pierced with pain. This was the daughter I had cherished for 10 years. Faced with my wife's first love, William, she was full of admiration and joy, but for me, only cold mockery. At this moment, my wife, who had been silent, finally spoke up, frowning as she scolded our daughter. "Vivian, how can you speak to your father like that? You're being so inconsiderate." She appeared to be defending me, proactively grabbing a towel and handing it to me gently. "Nolan, don't take the child's words to heart. Go change your clothes first. We'll talk when you come out." As I took the towel, I noticed the undisguised disgust in her eyes. My heart sank even further. Just as I was about to enter the room, William suddenly approached me. "It's Nolan, right? I just got back from overseas. Melody insisted on throwing me a welcome party. I really couldn't refuse, so I came. I heard you just lost your job. No problem. The current job market isn't great, but I should be able to help you with finding work." His friendly and approachable demeanor only served to make me feel small and pitiful in comparison. Before I could respond, my mother-in-law impatiently shoved me. "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and thank William. You're a grown man in your 30s, and you still managed to get laid off. You're such an embarrassment to Melody." I stumbled from the push, nearly falling over. Yet my beloved wife and daughter seemed not to notice, their full attention on another man. This was supposedly my home, but I felt like a complete outsider. In the end, I said nothing and went to the bedroom to freshen up. When I came back out, they were already seated at the dining table eating. Not one person called for me. There wasn't even a place set for me at the table. Melody slowly put down her chopsticks when she saw me approach, then turned to our daughter. "Vivian, go get your dad some dishes and utensils." My daughter rolled her eyes at me. "I'm not doing it. He doesn't even have a job. He can't support me, Mom, and Grandma anymore. Why should I have to get stuff for him? Dad, don't you have hands? Are you planning to just be useless from now on?" Such harsh, cutting words coming from the mouth of my own daughter. My heart was filled with nothing but sorrow and self-mockery. Melody gave her daughter a disapproving glance, then spoke to me softly. "Nolan, you've spoiled this girl. Go to the kitchen and get your utensils, then sit next to me. We can squeeze in." Before she could finish, my mother-in-law suddenly stood up. I thought she was going to help me get a bowl and chopsticks, as she used to when I was bringing in money for the family, but to my surprise, she grabbed the dog's food bowl and shoved it into my hands. "There are no bowls left in the kitchen. Wash this and use it." At that moment, I felt incredibly bitter. This is the wife, daughter, and mother-in-law I had worked hard to support for 10 years. "Never mind, I'm not eating anymore." I was about to return to my room when William spoke up with surprise. "Nolan, you're not angry, are you? I just asked for you. My company needs a janitor. It pays $2,000 a month. It's not very respectable, but if you do well as a janitor, there's a chance to be promoted to supervisor." I knew very well that he was trying to belittle me to show off his own abilities to Melody. I had barely said no need when my mother-in-law suddenly stood up and slammed her hand on the table. She yelled at me angrily. "Someone's offering you a job and you're being picky? You're not taking care of your darling and child anymore? You really plan to live off my daughter's money, be a kept man?" At that moment, I could no longer contain the anger welling up inside me. When Melody and I first got married, my mother-in-law suffered a stroke and became paralyzed. Melody had to care for her and couldn't work, so I took on the responsibility of all our household expenses. Later, when my mother-in-law recovered, Melody wanted to start her own studio. Once again, I invested my hard-earned savings to support her venture. However, she never contributed a single penny of her earnings to our household expenses. At this moment, Melody finally spoke up, furrowing her brow as she reminded me, "Nolan, you're unemployed now. As the breadwinner of this family, you must take on the responsibility. Also, William just returned from abroad and will be staying in your room temporarily. He'll pay rent, which will help ease our financial strain. You can sleep in the small storage room from now on. Her words sounded reasonable, as if refusing would make me irresponsible. I finally understood. They were simply taking advantage of my unemployment and financial predicament, forcing me to accept William's presence. In that moment, my last shred of attachment to this family vanished completely. Thinking of the $200 million I was about to receive, I no longer held back. I coldly said, "No need to trouble yourselves. I'm moving out. Without a job, are you going to beg on the streets? You shameless good-for-nothing. Don't stop him. Let him get the hell out of here." My mother-in-law couldn't resist mocking me. Melody cast a disappointed glance at me, then ignored me, turning her face away to serve food to our daughter. Our daughter rolled her eyes even more dramatically, clinging to William's arm and sweetly calling out, "Uncle William, give mommy some vegetables. Mommy loves her veggies." This heartwarming scene only served to highlight how much I stood out, like a sore thumb. I decisively retreated to the bedroom, packed my things, and was about to leave with my suitcase in hand. Suddenly, my mother-in-law approached, forcefully snatching the suitcase from me and eyeing me with a suspicious glare. "You can go, but let me check if you've stolen anything from the house." She moved to open my suitcase. I had hoped for an amicable parting, but I never expected my mother-in-law to be so overbearing. I immediately grabbed the suitcase back, shouting angrily, "You have no right to do that." Seeing this, my mother-in-law became even more convinced I was hiding something, and started hurling insults at me. The commotion quickly drew Melody's attention. After hearing what had happened, Melody furrowed her brow, staring at me for several seconds. Suddenly, she dragged me into the room and closed the door. She spoke to me earnestly, "Nolan, can you please stop this nonsense? I know you're feeling down about losing your job, and I understand if you don't want to be a janitor. I'll have William arrange for you to be a driver. How's that? You don't have a job right now, so just bear with it for a while. At the very least, you should show your value around the house, shouldn't you?" My heart was heavy with disappointment as I listened to her self-righteous words. "So your definition of my value is unconditionally supporting you and your mother's family when I can make money? And when I can't make money, I'm supposed to stay home like a servant and watch your first love play the man of the house. Is that right?" Melody's face turned ugly. Flushed with anger and embarrassment, she snapped, "Nolan, what nonsense are you spouting? What man in this world doesn't support his darling and children? Are you the only one who feels put upon? I'm trying to have a civil conversation with you, and you're being so ungrateful. Don't forget, you're the one who's unemployed right now." I was thoroughly done with this argument and pushed open the door to leave. Suddenly, our daughter rushed up and forcefully slapped a document against my chest, shouting, "Useless dad, hurry up and divorce mom. I want Uncle William to be my dad." I looked closely at the paper and realized it was a printed divorce agreement. In the bottom right corner, Melody had already signed her name. My mother-in-law chimed in from the side, beaming with pride. "My clever granddaughter, that's right. You need to kick this freeloader out." She then pointed at me and barked, "What are you waiting for? Sign it already." Melody originally felt sorry for you and didn't want to bring up divorce, but now, it seems like the perfect time. I looked at Melody's cold, impassive face. Without further hesitation, I snatched the pen, scribbled my signature, and threw it on the ground. "Fine, let's divorce. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., meet at the courthouse." The rain had stopped when I left home. I pulled out the crumpled lottery ticket from my pocket. The prize amount was $200 million. At the time, I had been laid off. After informing my family, I was still feeling upset, so I bought a lottery ticket on a whim. I never expected to hit the jackpot. I was overjoyed and wanted to share the news with Melody. I planned to buy a big mansion for the family, expand her studio, get luxury handbags for my mother-in-law, and buy limited edition Barbie dolls for our daughter. But those hopes were completely shattered after everything that just happened. I arrived at a hotel, intending to get a room to stay temporarily, but when I tried to pay, I was told, "I'm sorry sir, but your card has been deactivated." My heart sank. All these years, I had handed over all the money I earned. This card was given to me by Melody for living expenses. Before leaving home, I thought that at worst, I'd lose all our savings from over the years. I never imagined Melody would be so ruthless. How laughable that I used to scrimp and save for this family, not even daring to order takeout over $10 when I was out. I called Ivy, my only friend in the city and college classmate, for help. As soon as she heard I had no money, she immediately transferred $6,000 to me. She even ordered food to be delivered to me. This was the first hot meal I'd eaten all night until now. I love deeply and have given everything for my family, yet it amounts to less than an ordinary classmate. How laughable. The next day at 9 a.m. sharp, I arrived punctually at the courthouse. I immediately spotted Melody and William wearing matching outfits, holding hands and laughing at the entrance. My mother-in-law had even gotten her hair permed, her face beaming with joy. Even my daughter Vivian was dressed in a festive red dress, wearing 2 red hair clips. Well, at least you're smart enough not to drag my daughter and granddaughter down with you into a life of hardship. Melody, hurry up and get the paperwork done, my mother-in-law urged Melody. Without wasting words, I entered the hall first. Melody gazed at me with a complex expression for a moment before following me in. In less than half an hour, the divorce papers were finalized. As I was about to leave, Melody suddenly called out to me, handing me a card with a look of pity. "Thank you for leaving the custody of our daughter and the house and assets to me. There's $2,000 on this card. Take care of yourself from now on." Looking at her hypocritical face, I didn't even want to speak, but I still took the card. After all, it was my hard-earned money. Only a fool would refuse it. Next, I went to claim my prize. $200 million, minus taxes, quickly landed in my account. I immediately arranged to meet Ivy for dinner. When I was at my most helpless, she was the one who helped me. Not just last night, but for so many years. Every time my mother-in-law fell ill or we had major family expenses, Melody was never willing to swallow her pride and borrow money. It was always me begging Ivy for help time and time again that got us through those tough times. So now that I've turned things around, I must repay her. I asked her to meet me at a mall, then headed straight for the luxury stores to pick out gifts for her. Ivy, worried that I might be acting on impulse, kept trying to pull me out, advising me, "Nolan, This place is too expensive. Let's go somewhere else. I stubbornly helped her choose suitable clothes and bags. Just then, Melody walked into the store with my mother-in-law, our daughter, and William. The moment she saw me, Melody's smiling face instantly fell. Nolan, are you actually following me? Nolan, as a man, can't you have some ambition? You've resorted to being clingy and pestering now? My mother-in-law pointed at me and scolded, unable to contain her frustration any longer. I replied coolly, your ego is too big. I'm here selecting a gift for my friend. Why would I need to follow you? Ivy stood there awkwardly holding her purse, unsure of what to say. William suddenly burst out laughing. Selecting a gift? Nolan, it seems you've never been in a luxury store like this before. You don't know anything. Do you know how much that purse you were holding costs? At least 100 grand. Even I have to think twice about buying a bag like that. And you? He shook his head, amused. Melody wore an expression of exasperated disappointment as she addressed me with displeasure. Nolan, all you have to your name is the 20 grand I gave you. Are you really going to throw away your future just to save face? When you're truly desperate, begging me won't help. I almost laughed out loud. My daily interest alone is over 10 grand now, equivalent to her monthly salary. Why would I need to beg her? Who says Nolan can't afford it? It's just 100 grand, right? We'll buy it. Ivy spoke up bravely from the side. As the scene unfolded, she discreetly slipped a card into my hand, her eyes signaling for me to use it. I knew it was Ivy's entire life savings. At this moment, she was willing to give it all up just to help me save face. A warm feeling washed over me. The truth is, I've always known how this girl felt about me, but back then, I was in love with Melody, so I never directly responded to her feelings. Now, I truly felt like I'd been blind all these years to have fallen for a woman like Melody. I gave Ivy a gentle smile. It's alright, I've got money. With that, I pulled out a card and handed it to the waiter. Charge it, please. As the waiter took the card to process it, my mother-in-law burst out laughing, clearly enjoying the spectacle. Melody furrowed her brow, looking at me with disappointment. William, hugging my daughter, gazed at me calmly, as if watching a clown perform. Soon, the card machine let out a beep. Transaction approved. In an instant, all eyes were on me, especially Melody, whose eyes had widened to nearly twice their size, staring at me in disbelief. Nolan, where did you get the money? William raised an eyebrow, understanding dawning on her face. Oh, I get it now. Nolan, you're so desperate to impress girls that you'd take out a loan shark just to show off? You're quite the piece of work. He sneered, his lips curled in disdain. I couldn't be bothered to explain myself to them, and was about to leave when suddenly, a store clerk pointed at me and exclaimed, ah, I remember now. This gentleman is the one who won the $200 million jackpot yesterday. $200 million? In an instant, the entire store erupted into a frenzy, with everyone buzzing and staring at me. My mother-in-law froze for a moment, then let out a scornful laugh. Him? Impossible. A loser like Nolan couldn't possibly have such good luck. Before she could finish, Melody suddenly stared at her phone, her face turning pale as she interrupted with a trembling voice. Wait, Mom, that's not right. The news says the $200 million winner is actually Nolan.